to start? All right, let's go. Top left. Upward mobility works. Second on the left. Word in a word. Yes, family is one of the words. All in the family, good. Third on the right. The word is dice. How many are there? Double dice works. What else? A pair of dice works. Good job. And there might be some others. Fourth on the left. Yellow. Good. Top right. I happen to like this one. Do I need to help you unpack it? Okay. RIP stands for rest in peace. And if you are resting in peace, using that metaphor, what are you? Dead. Where are you dead? Dead at sea. Good job. I don't know why I think that one's really fun, but okay. Second on the right. The word is what kind? Capital punishment. Those are not lowercase letters. Capital punishment. Third on the right. Just between me and you. Fourth on the right. The word is mall. And there's a line of them. What's another word? Strip mall. Good job. I'm proud of you. All right. Take a look at this. I want you to look for the letter F, finished. Tell me how many times the letter F appears in this paragraph. Okay, I hear 6, I hear 7. 10, 11. Now, Pastor, this sounds like the church board. Now, let me tell you what some of you were doing, because you were doing exactly what I asked you to do. I asked you to find the letter F, but I pronounced F and said, as in the word finished, so your brain is looking for those sounds. And you likely missed of, and of, and of, and of, because it's not an F sound. And so depending on the kind of questions you ask people, you may get a very different answer. If I had just said to you, look at this letter right here. How many of those are in this paragraph? Most of you would have gotten of, because you would have had no sound in your brain, which is fascinating to me. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, so good. All right. 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm not visual. Just go for it. But I find it fascinating that we rarely get it, depending on how the question is asked. And that's made me a lot more cognizant of what kind of language am I using. Is it raining? Oh my goodness, I just noticed. Bill, do you have an umbrella? Good man. All right. We're talking about how you create new behaviors. I'm going to go through this quickly. You can get all these slides on my website. I want you to think bypass as a metaphor. So think of your brain habits as pieces of software, because that's really what they are. When you do something once, you begin to lay out a pattern of software among the neurons, because the brain says, if you ever want to do this again, I've got a good start on a highway. That's wonderful if this is a good thing to do. If it's a bad thing to do, if it's not helpful for you, you've still got the pattern started. And it is always easier to do something a second time. So you need to be careful what you do once. If this software you decide is giving you trouble, then we don't know how to jackhammer the software out and throw the neurons away. But we do know that you can create a bypass. So you start down this path, and when you get to the place in that software that you want to exhibit a different behavior, you install a signal light and create a bypass. And that means you no longer use this part. And that's the best way we have found when working with people with addictive behaviors to get them to change that. So when you install a signal light, you still have to use willpower at the signal light, and you turn, and this then becomes your pattern. This can become stronger and stronger till eventually it's stronger than the old software, but you've always got the old software. Had a guy come to stop smoking program at St. Helena Hospital. He'd been there 15 years before. I remembered him. I said, "You're back. Whatever happened?" "Yeah," he said, I quit. "Well," he says, "this is what happened." And he said, "I know you told me this, but I didn't remember." He said, "My daughter got married a month ago. Bunch of all my old cronies showed up at the wedding, guys that I used to play pool with down at the corner, and we smoked together, and one of them had brought a whole box of cigars from Cuba." He says, let's have a cigar to celebrate your daughter's wedding." I looked at him and he says, "Well, I thought I'd been smoke-free for 15 years, that the highway would be closed." I said, "I told you that's always there." "Yeah," he says, "you're right." He says, "I took one puff and I was right back on the old highway. I'm here now to get tuned up." So it's very important, my brain's opinion, to understand that. So 5 steps to success. This is what I have had the most success with in working with people wanting to change behaviors. It's a stair step. It involves 5 steps: mindset, self-talk, rehearsal, willpower, and vigilance, and that gets you to success. I like acronyms, if that's what you call this. But when I'm trying to remember these steps, this is what I think of. My snails, race with vigor. And I picture all these little snails. My snails race with vigor. And that gives me mindset, self-talk, rehearsal, willpower, and vigilance. So let's quickly talk about each one of those. Mindset's just a mental attitude. It's a set of predetermined responses that influence what you're inclined to do. So it's worth getting your mindset together. Establishes your direction. It's like a map. If this comes up, I already know what I'm choosing to do. I keep saying this. Have you got it memorized yet? Read it with me. Everything starts in the brain, and it begins with a mindset. yours. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Get it. Memorize it. I like to talk about the iceberg metaphor. 15, 20% maybe of the iceberg sticks up above the waterline. Well, pretty much the same for your brain. Got about 15 to 20% where you have conscious thought in your brain. And the rest of your brain and body is your subconscious mind. Because remember, you've got neurons all through your body. Heart, gut, so on. And it has a really uncanny ability to know whether or not you're serious. And if you're not serious, your brain goes, been through this before. You know what, if I just sit here and bide my time, 2 or 3 days, won't take long. We'll be back to doing what we used to do before. And it does not help you because it senses you're just doing it. It's like the people, the judge says, okay, you got to go to a rehab center. All right, I'm going. I don't intend to quit, but, it's better than going to jail. I'll go. Brain's not going to help you do anything. It knows you're not serious. Couple of kinds of mindsets. Carol Dweck has done really good research with this. There's fixed mindset, and these kind of people say, I am who I am, it is what it is, there's nothing I can do about it. And there's the growth mindset individuals who know that if they apply themselves, if they get the information, turn it into knowledge, they can absolutely improve. First question is, what kind of mindset do you have? Carol says, having a growth mindset doesn't force you to pursue something. It just tells you that you can develop your skills. It's still up to you if you want to do it or not. How do you develop your mindset? Starts really early. What you hear people say about you, what people say to you. And gradually, as that happens and you watch how the big people in your life behave, what they're actually doing, you start developing a mindset. I had to change mine. One of the interesting studies, teacher was talking to 4 to 6-year-olds. And the teacher said, you choose. We need to be giving kids choices as early as possible, only 2 at a time because you only have 2 hemispheres, but make them choose and then allow them to experience the consequences. Most of the time you'll give them 2 good choices, and it doesn't matter to you which they pick, but they need to practice choosing. So the teacher says, you choose. We've been doing jigsaw puzzles. Here's your choice. You can redo this easy one that you just did. Or you can try a harder one. And then graduate students watch the choices those 4 to 6-year-olds made. And the children with a fixed mindset redid the old puzzle. The children with a growth mindset chose the new harder puzzle. And you can see that as early as age 4 in children. Peter Pan. Yes, Peter Pan is pretending. But there's something in that play that J.M. Barrie wrote that speaks to what we now know about mindset. He said, the moment you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do it. And that's basically what happens in the brain. If you doubt you can do it, it will not happen. Because as Tansy and Oprah found, the brain can only do what it thinks it can do. And it's your job to tell it what it can do. But you have to know where you're going and who you are and what you want to do in order to tell your brain what it needs to do. The third layer, neocortex, remember, is the only one that uses language. It doesn't have to be aloud. Language is reading, language is writing, language is hearing, language is speaking. And these first 2 layers don't use language per se, but the brain thinks in pictures. So the minute you say something, your brain is going to make a picture. And these first two layers can see the picture, and they'll follow the picture. So if I say to you, don't think about the ugly red monkey, what's the picture? The ugly red monkey. You'll be thinking about it whether you were thinking about it before or not. You know, every once in a while we hear something like that on the news. Heard not too long ago, this couple left their 10-year-old son at home while they went out to dinner and a movie or something, and they said as they walked out the door, don't play with matches and burn the house down. And later, the wife said, her husband asked her, why did you say that? She goes, I don't know. Well, you can't answer the question why. But he'd never played with matches. She had no idea why she said that. Guess what happened? He thought about matches. He went and found matches. He lit matches. He burned the house down. The fire department was there when they got home. Ridiculous. So you must be careful what you say to yourself and how you say it, because you create pictures that these layers can follow. When you give a positive instruction, you are giving a one-step process. Jack, you speak kindly to the children. What's the picture? What's the picture? Speaking kindly. If you said instead, Jack, don't yell at the kids, what's the picture? Yelling at the kids. I looked up the Lord's Prayer. I looked it up in, I think, 5 or 6 different translations. It only tells you what to do. It doesn't tell you what not to do. It tells you what to do. And that's a one-step process for your brain. When you use negatives, that's a 2-step process. And the don't is supposed to tell you, well, that's what they just said is not what they want you to do. It tells you what not to do. It does not tell you what to do. And the first and second layers often miss the don't and follow the first picture. So you say to a child, don't touch the stove. The picture pops up of what? Touching the stove. The kid touches the stove. We punish the child for disobeying. Who gave him the picture? It's so much more effective to say, keep your hand away from the stove. One-step process. What you say is what you get. Daniel Wegner has done a lot of research about this. In fact, he wrote the book, The White Bear Phenomenon, and he says, when you say, don't think about the white bear, that's basically all your brain wants to think about. So I tried this out on a group of, I think, sophomore college kids. I said, don't think about the white bear. And one of them was very bright and said, Dr. Taylor, what do you want me to think about? Brilliant. One of his classmates says, well, you idiot, not a white bear, a brown bear. And the student said, well, I don't know if she wants me to think about a bear at all. I said, good man. You must start saying what you want as if it's a done deal, and stop saying what you don't want. Because it's almost impossible for children whose brains are not even close to being done to do that conversion. And it's pretty difficult for the average adult, actually. So stop talking about what you don't want to have happen and only talk about what you do, and talk about it in short, positive, present tense words. Use your first name and you. Alcohol recovery program. Mark, you are drinking water. Or you drink water. You like the taste, you feel good. That's what you want. Say nothing about what you don't want. The kicker is that we tend to talk to others in the same style we use with ourselves. So when somebody is very negative, I actually feel very sorry for them because I know that's how they talk to themselves, and if I were their brain, I'd get really tired of being spoken to in a negative way. So what's more effective? Don't forget your homework, or, Mary, put your homework in your book bag. Huge difference. And when you alter the way you talk to yourself, you start almost automatically doing that to others, and your communication is much enhanced. We learn how to talk to ourselves from the way we were talked to growing up. So, if parents and teachers role model this, then the children, in turn, Laura Burke at University of Southern Illinois has done wonderful research on this, they start using the same kind of self-talk to themselves. So instead of hearing, oh, I can't do that, it's too hard, what are they asking me? I can't do that. You will actually hear these 3- and 4-year-olds saying, Jill, you are doing this. Try it again. Because that's what they've heard, Jill. You are doing this. Try it again. And it makes a big difference in adulthood. Ethan Kross, I think he's a brilliant researcher. One of the projects he did was he got a bunch of participants together, and he told them, you have 5 minutes to prepare a speech, and then you give a 5-minute speech. And half of them, divided them into 2 groups, half of them, he said, you can use I, you can use me. The other group, he said, you use your first name and you tell yourself in present tense language, Arlene, you are. They hired professional public speakers as judges. And when it was all said and done, the ones who gave the best speech, who had the least anxiety, and who did not beat themselves up for small mistakes when they were done, were the ones who said, Arlene, you are giving this speech. You are having fun doing it. He says that your brain is a sponge. Okay, we knew that. And if you talk about I and me, what you're actually doing is hooking into your ego in that second layer, which gives you a sense of maybe I can't do this, and if you have self-esteem problems, that's going to be problematic. But if you use your given name and you, it's like you depersonalize it. I like that word. You simply tell your brain, Arlene, you are doing this, and you and your brain start working together. Because there's no pejoratives, there's no negatives, nothing like that. So step 3, rehearsal. There's a couple kinds of rehearsals. Got on the plane in San Francisco on Thursday. And once again, the steward, whatever you call them now, said, would like you to pay attention to the whatever standing in the aisle, and we're giving you some safety tips. One of the things they said was, in the event of an unexpected water landing. Don't you love that? I mean, this is not a plane with pontoons. Every water landing would be unexpected. In the event of an unexpected water landing, blah, blah, blah. So you got actual rehearsal and you got virtual rehearsal. On the plane, it's virtual. If you're actually doing it as when you get on a cruise ship, you know, I really do not like those drills. First of all, I have to find the life jacket. I mean, I had to have help the last time. I looked everywhere, I thought. It was in the bedside stand that had a diagonal, it could open diagonally. And the life jacket was in there. Who thought of moving the lamp and opening the bedside stand? Come on. But anyway, I do it because remember, when you've done something once, what happens? It's easier to do it a second time. So I will do the actual rehearsal, and I do the virtual rehearsal on the plane, programming my brain if we have difficulty. In real life, do both. When you're learning something and you're actually trying to do it, great, that's actual rehearsal. Now, keep rehearsing it in your brain, because virtual rehearsal is a way of triggering your brain's mirror neurons. There are neurons that are called mirror neurons in your prefrontal cortex, and when you watch yourself doing a behavior, it's like double practice. Now, here's the kicker. If you watch somebody else doing a behavior, those mirror neurons fire as if you were doing it yourself. Can you understand the reason Scripture says to be really careful what you look at, what you think about, what you see? So you watch really scary beat-em-up murder movies, your mirror neurons have been firing as if you were doing that yourself. And I think in brains that are unbalanced, when there's something, a grisly murder somewhere in the country, and then about 8 to 10 days later, what happens? You hear about a copycat murder. So those brains may have been watching the television programs about the murder, and they're replicating it because their brains are damaged and the mirror neurons have been firing. They've done it once in their mind. Here was a study that I found fascinating because I like to play the piano. Took two pianists, gave them each a piece of music that they did not know. The first person, they said, we want you to go to your piano. We want you to learn this piece of music. You are required to practice only this piece of music for 2 hours a day for the next 7 days. The second person, they said, here's your piece of music. Stay away from a piano. Don't care where you prop the music up. Put it on your bureau dresser if you want to. But we want you to look at that music for 2 hours every single day and imagine in your mind's eye that you're really playing it on the piano. End of 7 days, did a second brain scan on pianist number 1 and definitely saw reshaping of the brain's motor cortex as it had learned the new finger movements for this piece of music. But here's what was staggering. They did the second brain scan on the virtual pianist, and they had the same reshaping of the motor cortex from practicing in their mind's eye. If you can learn to do that, you can practice any instrument anywhere in your brain. It's amazing. Willpower. We're up to with. My snail's what? Race with. We're up to with. Willpower is really misunderstood. It is a function of the prefrontal cortex, and remember that that's not completed, it's not matured until somewhere between mid to late 20s. Unfortunately, many people have already made a whole lot of life-impactful decisions by then. One of my girlfriends got married when she was 15, had 3 children by the time she was 18, called me one day. We were going to celebrate her 27th birthday. She said, Arlene, I woke up this morning and I looked around the house and I said to myself, what are all these people doing here? Because if I was making the choice now, none of them would be here. Not even the dog. But she's got them. Husband, 3 kids, dog, parrot. Made choices long before her brain was developed enough to give her a good sense. You know, the person that you think you want to wake up next to every morning for the rest of your life when you're 17 can be very different from the person you want to wake up next to every morning when you're 27. I tell young people, slow down. Some people get it right. I don't know how they do that. They must be very fortunate. They marry young and they get it right. Many people who marry young stay together but have a miserable existence, and life's too short for that. So willpower is one of those things that does not develop until mid to late 20s. Now, hopefully, you've been practicing this your whole life, with your parents giving you choices, allowing you to experience the consequences of your choices so that you learn how to make good decisions. You're lucky if that happened to you. I was at a park eating a potluck with a group of friends not too long ago, and at the table next to us was a woman and 8 little boys. Okay, so I raised 3 boys, and I'm always interested in a bunch of little boys. I just think their brains and their energy is so fun. I'm sure it is for girls too, but I happen to raise boys. So I'm watching these little boys. This is what I figured out. It was one of the little boys' birthday, the redhead with his hair sticking up, rooster tail. His mother had evidently given him a choice, good choice, 2 choices only, and said, for your birthday, you can invite, 6, 7 of your little friends, and we will either go to the zoo or we'll go to the skateboard park. You choose. So he apparently chose the skateboard park. They'd done skateboarding all morning. She had this fabulous, food out there, birthday cake, everything. They finished eating. She said, all right, we have 3 more hours. You can do some more skateboarding. Little Farquhar here with the red hair and the rooster tail says, I'm tired of the skateboard park. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go to the zoo. With what I know now, my response would have been, Farquhar, you had a choice. You chose the skateboard park. Now you have 2 choices. We stay at the skateboard park or we go home. Next year, if you want to choose the zoo, fine. What do you suppose she said? Well, if you help me clean all of this stuff up, get it in the car, we can probably have a couple hours at the zoo. What'd she just teach him? It doesn't matter what you choose, you can get it anyway. And you can't do that in life. You always give up something to get something. So you best be thinking carefully about what it is you give up. That's maturity to me. You look at 2 choices and you decide what you have to give up to get this one. And you decide which is the best for you. And we need to be teaching that to our kids. Daniel Wegner says, read with me. No, he didn't say that, but I want you to read it with me. Willpower rarely, if ever, willpower rarely, if ever, works well to deprive yourself of something you already do for gratification, like trying to end a bad habit, especially one that involves addictive behaviors. Willing yourself not to do something puts the thing you don't want to do in working memory, and you think constantly about it, which tends to increase the behavior. What's the reason for reading it out loud? You got a hugely increased risk of having it go directly into long-term memory. because you're reading it, you're seeing it, you are articulating the words with your voice, you're using your voice box. If there's something you really want to learn, and it's in reading form, walk around and read it out loud, you'll be amazed at how much you remember. So willpower is designed to give you energy and perseverance. You need to have a defined, specific goal. It will help you create a brand new habit. And if you've got a habit that's giving you negative consequences, it will help you create a bypass that can help you alter your choices toward a negative behavior. It's amazing. How long does it take? Well, it's going to take more than 21 days. A lot of people think 21 days you got a new habit, dream on. You know, that came from Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon. He wrote a book that I'm not even remembering what it is. My brain will give it to me. But he wrote this book, and he had observed that when people came in and he had to amputate a limb, for example, it took about 21 days for the brain to stop thinking that that limb was still there. When they got a nose job, it took them about 21 days to look in the mirror and start recognizing the new me sort of things. So people who misunderstand studies sometimes thought that meant that it only takes 21 days to develop a new habit. It doesn't. In a huge, large sample study, it took 66 days as a mean to change a behavior positively. It took some people 200 days. So when I do the Longevity Lifestyle Matters program, it's 12 weeks. It's one session for 12 weeks, because by then, you've pretty well got that new behavior in place. And it's going to be pretty much easier for you to sustain. Remember the bypass. I said, install a signal light. There's nothing magic about the signal light. It's just a clue. Because Stanford University, when you have an urge to repeat an old behavior, there is a critical window of opportunity. They call it a magic quarter second before you actually take action. And as we've talked about, transmission rates up to 600 miles an hour across the neurons, listen, a quarter of a second is quite a bit of time neurologically. So I think you use that magic quarter second at the signal light. And when you're at the signal light for that magic quarter second, that's when you use willpower to turn on to the bypass. And if you missed it, if you went right on through and missed the bypass, you know, you've got this picture created in your mind. Just go back to the signal light and take the bypass. It's not the end of the world. You just go back and take the bypass. Last step, vigilance. Oliver Wendell Holmes, awareness is the first step on the continuum of positive change, meaning that you need to monitor yourself. Are you continuing to turn at the bypass? Are you taking the new path if it's a brand new behavior? Train yourself to pay attention. So you fell off the road and you missed the bypass. Figure it out now and get back on there, and not 6 weeks later when you're saying, oh yeah, haven't been doing that for a while, have I? Take anything out of the environment that's unhelpful to your new behavior. This is critical. I could tell you stories all day, and some of them are really rather funny. Had a woman come to the Longevity Lifestyle Program, and she was morbidly obese, which means it is life-threatening. So we put her on the program, and she was gaining about 1 pound a week as she came back every week, and I'm going, what is going on here? So I said to her, I want you to write down every single thing you eat for 7 days. I can't do that. And I said, well, you can, but you'll have to tell your brain you can. I said, you've already gained 3 pounds. Is that what you're coming to the program for? No. Fine. So next week she brings her food list back. I'm reading down the food list. You know, oatmeal, apple, juice for breakfast, you know, so on. I get down to the bottom. It says 8 o'clock, bowl of ice cream. I said to her, is ice cream one of the recommended foods? No, it's not. But my mother taught me not to waste food. And before I started the program, I'd come on to a fabulous sale of ice cream, and I filled my freezer. So when the ice cream is done, I won't have ice cream at night anymore. I said, are you nuts? What's this noise? It's going to your waist, W-A-I-S-T. Well, she said, I told you my mother said not to waste it. I said, fine, give it away, but stop eating it. Okay, we had an interesting little chat. She came back the next week. She'd lost 1.5 pounds. I said, this is more like it. You know, we're not concentrating on weight here. It's a side effect. But, you know, gaining 3 pounds in a program that hopefully you'll lose at least 0.5 pound a week as you do the entire program is not my idea of following the program. I said, what did you do? Well, she said, there's an orphanage in our town. And I went to them and asked them if they could use a freezer. And they said, yes, we could. So she said, I gave them the freezer. And I let the ice cream go with it. Okay, if you, whatever habit it is you want to create or alter, get everything out of your house, office, car, garage, barn, whatever. That's not going to help you on the program. Because it's difficult to do a new program when the old program stuff is all over the house staring you in the face. Mindful awareness is the price of success. Examine yourselves. Remember, Paul says examine yourself. Pay attention. How are you living? What choices are you making? What do you need to do? And that's where I said if you slip off the path, get back on now. Not months down the road. Now. Keep your self-talk positively and thank your brain for what it's helping you do. As I grew older, I used to think, I felt really sorry for God. Because if people talk to God like they talk to themselves and others, it must be rather depressing for him. And your brain is helping you if you talk to it properly and thank it. When I'm trying to do something, I thank my brain. But how many of you have ever had any of you have a hip replacement? Nobody? Wow. Me, okay. A knee? I had 2 hips. I understand hips aren't as painful as knees, so I'll take 2 hips. Nevertheless, for those of you who don't know, when you have a hip replacement, this leg does not even move when you finally get out of the recovery room. You have to retrain it to walk. And it was an amazing process for me. So they get you up right after the surgery anymore, and I'm standing there, and I have a walker. And the the physical therapist says, all right, raise your right leg. Bend it at the knee and raise your right leg. Okay. Nothing happened. There was not so much as a twitch. I said, what is this noise? Well, he says, you got to retrain yourself to walk. I said, oh, good. He said, imagine that your leg is raising and you are getting your foot off the ground. Okay, I worked really, 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 really hard that first day, and there was nothing. Got up the next day, told my brain, Arlene, you are raising your foot. Worked really, really hard the next day, and nothing. Told my brain, you are raising your foot. Got up the third morning, guess what? I got it off the ground at least half an inch. I thought I died and gone to heaven. It's amazing what you and your body can do if you're serious and you talk to it. And I thanked my brain. Thank you so much. I was the oldest person in that batch of hips. And I was the first one that got my foot off the ground. If you don't think that made me feel good. So, Janet, you are successful. It's fun being successful. You got to be excited about it. Your brain likes rewards, and you tell it thank you. That's a reward for your brain. Listen up. Every period of exhaustion is followed by a corresponding period of depression. I mentioned earlier that your brain works best when your life is in balance. If you let yourself get exhausted, you will get depressed. And you will get depressed for about the same amount of time as you were exhausted and out of balance. I can't afford to let that happen. Cannot afford to get my life out of balance. Neither can you. So here you go, my snail's race with vigor. I like the way Raymond Francis puts it. Health is not a chance. Health is a choice. And only you can choose it for you. So I hope you're choosing health for you because it's worth it. Now, I actually have saved 8.5 minutes for questions. I think I deserve some appreciation for that. All right, Pastor, how do you want to do this? Do you want just people to ask questions and see if we can hear them? Somebody put their hand up at the back? All right, go for it. How does all this tie into the brain that has ADHD? Well, first of all, a lot of children are misdiagnosed with ADHD. Often that is simply a child who is very, very extroverted and who has their energy advantage in the right frontal lobe of the brain where there is no reading, writing, spelling, or language. They are put in a schoolroom where they cannot move. They're told to sit down, shut up, and be still. And the extroverted brain must move to learn. And because they're having trouble concentrating, they're often medicated. And we have no idea what 50 years on Ritalin is going to do to a brain. There are some children who have reduced connectors between the frontal and the posterior lobes. So reading, writing, and arithmetic is all down here. These kids have their energy advantage up here. They can't go from here to here. There's no diagonal connectors in the cerebrum. So you tell a kid who's right frontal, like I am, I want you to learn this list of spelling words. They have to cross the corpus callosum and go downstairs, which is twice as far. And then it's going to take them 100 times more energy to use this part of the brain. Or they go downstairs and cross on the lower part. So it's no wonder they have difficulty in traditional schools. And some of those kids do really, really well homeschooled. And sometimes they do really quite well in a school that understands this is a kid who needs to move to learn. Let him move, boy or girl. But it's just amazing to me. Every church I go to, of any denomination, I tell them, unless it's the main service in the morning, which, you know, if I say to them, stand up anytime you want to, the pastor faints. But other than that, I tell them, get up and move around. It is not a problem. I want you to learn. And if your brain needs to move to learn, do it. But the ship of education is at least a quarter of a century behind brain function information. So I can't do anything about that. I've talked to several state representatives about education, and they look at me with eyes that are glazed and say, we really don't have the money to do that. I said, excuse me? Excuse me? Put half-standing desks in each room. Let kids rotate through and stand. What do you mean you don't have the money? You could do that. You can get a couple fathers in there. I mean, find Bill. He'll put some boards under some desks and make them half-standing desks. So there are things you can do if they'll work with you. Okay, anything else? Autism spectrum is different from ADHD. ADHD is characterized by difficulty being still and paying attention, difficulty learning if you can't move, things like that. Autism spectrum, boy, we're getting lots of information now about the autism spectrum. You can go on my website to Brain References and look up autism, and you'll find some of the latest research there. One of the things that characterizes autism is that the brain perceives sound differently. And sound that's an ordinary decibel level for you and me is hugely loud in that child's brain. And so they don't want even to talk sometimes because it's all too loud in the brain. And with some of those children, we found that having them wear earplugs is just enough to keep the sound dampened, that it doesn't seem so loud in their brain. So we're finding out some interesting things that hopefully is going to help that spectrum. Are we seeing more of it? I don't know. I think we're getting better at diagnosing it, and we certainly are over-diagnosing some. You know, I told you back in the late 1800s when I was in school, there were always kids in the room who were out of their desks, you know, needing to move around. And it wasn't the end of the world. But there's some teachers have to have all these little kids like automation, you know, toys in their desk, and every brain is different and it's not going to work. Okay, we got time for one more.
When it comes to memory, why is it if you forget something and you return to your original, say, location?
I love that. It's called the location function in the brain. And this is what happens. I'm sitting in my living room and I'm thinking, I want to go into the kitchen, time for another glass of water. My Apple Watch has gone off telling me to drink a glass of water. This is really fun. It's just never gone off in a church service before. Oh, well. I walk through the door between the living room and the kitchen, and the minute the brain goes through any type of doorway, it scrubs working memory clean to get ready to think about whatever's happening in the new room. You got that? So you walk in there and you look around and you go, what am I here for? You know, what was I coming in here for? And you think you're losing it. And you turn around and you walk back into the other, yeah, I wanted a glass of water. And you go through the door again and you go, I can't believe it. What was I coming in here for? And you go back again. This is all you have to do. As you walk through the doorway, doesn't mean if it's a single door, a double door, or an arch, anything that's like a doorway. You get to the doorway and you say, Arlene, you are getting a glass of water in the next room. You will always remember what you're going to do in the next room. But we didn't know that until we had brain scans, and it's just too fun. People thought they were on their way to dementia because they couldn't remember. No, because the brain scrubs its working memory based on location, so you're ready for whatever's new. So in order to remember, you have to tell the brain as you walk through the door, Arlene, you are getting a glass of water, or whatever it is.
So you always say that?
I do it. I talk to myself out loud all the time. Now, if I'm in, let's say that I'm attending a Stanford lecture, and I need to go outside to get a glass of water, you know, I'm not going to go up to the door and compete with the instructor and say, Arlene, you're going through this door to get a glass of water. But I will say to myself in my brain, Arlene, you're going through this door to get a glass of water. And it always works. All right, 2 minutes over. I apologize for that. It was really fun having you hang out with me today. I hope you've learned something that you can take home and start doing now, because brain function can change your life for the better. Thank you for inviting me.
He is here. Awesome. Let's stand for the closing prayer. Father in heaven, thank you so much, Lord, for the Sabbath day and for an opportunity to come together and to learn more about the amazing brains that you've given to us. Lord, I just ask that you would continue this process of teaching us how to take care of our brains and our bodies so that we will be ready for your soon return. Thank you, Lord, for Dr. Taylor and the work she does around the world in teaching people. I pray that you would give her safe traveling mercies tomorrow as she heads home. We ask all of this in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. Thank you all for